Hello, everyone. I am so excited this evening, this afternoon, or this morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm here to introduce author and excited award-winning author, because I see the little medallion on your book, Jennifer Juvenile, and so excited for her to be here. Jennifer is a dear friend of mine, and I'm just going to allow you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, enolia. Oh, it's so wonderful to be here with you. I appreciate that introduction. And yes, my name is Jennifer Juvenelle. I am it's a 5-star seal from Reader's Favorite. On that, I've received 3 5-star seals from Reader's Favorite. Daughter of Belial. It's a dark psychological thriller about a plucky young woman, somewhat naive, who is kidnapped and plunged into the dark underbelly of the global elite and a sinister secret society with deep ties to her family. So it's a bit of an adventure, romance, and suspense all in one. I
Wow.
am I'm really excited to come here and talk to you about it and also talk about the story that inspired it, which is my own healing journey from
Yes, so
childhood
let's
sexual.
deep
Yes.
dive right into it. Let's deep dive because we want to know how you're inspired by the story. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I started a healing journey after years of depression and negative coping behaviors, turning to alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, anything for escape. In my early 30s, I had just a culmination of all the suffering and everything that happened, what you might call a dark night of the soul. And I surrendered to the universe, to a greater power, and I asked for help. I finally stopped trying to do it all on my own, and I asked for help. And that was in 2016, and that led to a lot of synchronistic events happening in my life. People arriving, books arriving, and I consciously made the decision to get help and to begin. I didn't know how to begin, but just find some help and begin that healing journey. And right at the start of that is when I started writing my book without realizing that it was going to be closely linked to that entire journey. That initial, healing is a journey that we go on. I think we're always growing and healing, but when we're talking about healing from trauma and the negative behaviors, there, for me at least, there was a cocoon period of where I was really focusing on that issue, and that's
Mm.
when I also wrote my book.
So that's a really, really powerful, powerful journey because I'll tell you what, when you have life experiences such as what you've mentioned, how does one get themselves to sit down and write? Okay. I mean, here you are on this journey, you're healing, you're trying to let go of some of this. And then the writing piece, was the writing actually healing for you, or what was it for you?
Thank you. That's a really insightful question. Sitting down to write was a challenge at times, and I'm grateful to whatever aspect of myself that just let myself off the hook. That I had long periods of not writing, and in hindsight, I realized during those periods I was in deep healing, even when it looked like all I was doing was getting high and watching TV. There's a certain amount of rest that you have to allow yourself when you're healing from trauma. You have to allow yourself to move through what you're moving through. And so I did that. And then I would have these periods of really high inspiration, and I would get really excited about the book again, and I'd go back into it. So I wrote it in spurts initially. The way it started, it just came out in a spurt. And then I don't feel like I was working through healing during the writing per se. Like it's almost like I would have to heal a bit and then I'd write, heal a bit and then I'd write. Occasionally, there was one instance in particular where it sort of aligned, but it's not something that I wrote that ended up in this book, although it is in the next book, the book 2 of Daughter of Belial. And it was, I I realized that I wanted to write something and something else wanted to come through. Actually, it was right after I did a soul retrieval with you, Enolia, that this happened, where we come to think of it. And if you recall, we didn't quite complete that soul retrieval. And I went and saw my somatic therapist that I see, and we completed it there. And then I went in to write in the book, and something else wanted to come through. So I wrote something else, and it was a little poem that came out, but it was the truth. It was from my inner child whom we had just retrieved, and she wrote what happened to her in like a little thing. And I felt the visceral truth of it. Like I started crying and I had this big release, and simultaneously I had this massive awareness and understanding of what I was writing about and what the book would be about, because until then I actually didn't know where the story was going.
Yes, yes. So for those of you who don't know, we were next door neighbors in Santa Monica, Los Angeles, and
Yes.
in California. And just so to see you go through the process, because I was there while you were writing and I was there while you were going through your process, to me, it's just phenomenal. So another question would be this. So it's a dark psychological thriller. And when you're in the rabbit hole, how do you know where to go, and how do you know how to climb out in your writing process?
So the rabbit hole of the writing process. Yeah. Like when I'm in those dark, talking about like the dark subject matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first word that came to me was trust when you asked that. Because I'm an intuitive writer, I had to really trust the process, trust in the information that was coming to me, and trust that it was all going to become a well-rounded story and make sense, and that there was a plot, and so yeah, that's, oh gosh, there's so many things coming up right now. So when I went into some of these really dark parts of the story, particularly later on, because the final part of the book came in a rush. I think I wrote more of the book in 6 months than I did in 3 years, kind of a thing. And that was when I finished it. And so there's some really dark things that happen in that section. And I would have some, I'm writing it, so the information is coming through as I'm writing it. I'm not plotting it ahead of time. I don't know when I sit down to write that this is where the story is going to go, and that this is what's going to happen to the main character, whom I, feel very connected to and love, right? Because she's loosely based off of me, and then she took on her own persona. So one instance in particular, I had moved back in with my mom, and I wrote this one scene, which I won't give away, but it triggered me. It triggered a lot of my old wounding, and so maybe I did heal during some of the writing process, now that I think about it. It really brought up a lot, but it also, the energy was just flushing through me. So I got it all out on the page. And then I went, and thank goodness I was living with my mom, because I was then able to go in and have a very healing moment with her, where for the first time, not for the first time in our relationship, but around this issue, I was vulnerable with her. I let her in on what was going on, and she comforted me, which was not something that had happened when I was initially traumatized as a child. That didn't happen. So it was like we were healing the past, like I was a child again, and she was comforting me, and I got to experience that. So yeah, there was
Wow. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this, and I'm quite sure there are many, but why don't you pick one of your greatest lessons learned as you were navigating through the story of the book without giving too much away?
Greatest lesson learned in, may I have some clarity around that, in what, with healing or with writing? How
Whichever you choose.
Whichever I choose. Okay, greatest lesson. think, well, I don't know how it fits in really, but the greatest lesson that I've had to go through healing from being a victim is taking responsibility.
Mm.
And
This is really, really important because there are a lot of people who have gone through trauma, the trauma that you've gone through. Okay. And to hear this is powerful. So please, please do
thank
share.
you. Yeah, the tendency, and it's very easy to fall into this with when you've been attacked, whether it was violent or, like in my case, I call it gentle rape. It's where your predator is kind to you, which is very confusing. And it's very easy to say, I didn't deserve this. This is not my fault. I didn't ask for this. All those things. And all of those things are true, I might add. It's not like the little girl deserves something to happen and that's why it happens. But when I take responsibility, what I mean by that is I step into the position and the perspective of my soul, my oversoul, who is directing this incarnation in my life, as well as all my other incarnations. And so we really have to step outside of the bounds and the dogmas that we've been fed in humanity and find a perspective that frees you from victimhood. And so for me, this is the perspective that freed me, was to look at myself as a multidimensional being having a human experience, and I am a warrior of light, and I chose to incarnate into a dark storyline and heal it and shine light and show other people, look, I did it, and I'm just regular like you. I grew up in the Midwest in the US. My mom was a single mom. I was abandoned by my father, like all these things. I can heal from it, and if I can do it, so can you.
Absolutely. And share with us the greatest lesson learned as a writer.
Trust again, like to trust myself, trust the process, and allow it to come through. My job, I've realized in life and in writing, is to get out of the way. I just have to, get out of the way, let the energy flow, and put my hands on the keyboards, do what I need to do to make sure that my environment is set up so it's conducive. For if I'm going to have a writing session, I like to have silence. I like to be cozy in bed, and I have a glass of water, and I put my computer on a pillow on my knees, and I open up internally to allow divine creativity to flow through me, put my hands on the keyboard, and I wait.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Just to allow.
And so that is really, really key, because there are people who write and then they'll allow people to read their story and then be influenced from the outside. Have you ever encountered anyone trying to influence where your story should go or how it should be written from the outside, versus you understanding that you're navigating through the story in a divine way, so therefore no outside influences? How was that for you?
I had to put up some very strong barriers. Yeah, this is where, you have to know yourself. And I do think it's important. It can be tempting to try to get feedback from people. But it's really dangerous, especially early on, because if this is new to you and you don't trust yourself yet as a creative and as a writer, that feedback could just stop you in your tracks. So I did, like when I first wrote it, when I first wrote the first couple of chapters, I shared it with a couple of trusted individuals. But they knew first draft, like this is just to share it, and I only want positive feedback. Like I was very clear about what I desired, and I received positive feedback, but it felt genuine, and so that early encouragement actually helped me to keep going. And then later on, I reached a point where I stopped showing it to people, and I just really went in because I didn't want that feedback. But I will say that, and this is why I've dedicated the book to my husband. Before we were together, we were friends, and he fell in love with my writing because I had written some really raw blog pieces, and it was kind of how we became closer friends. And so at one point I gave up on the book back in 2019. I hadn't written in 8 months, and I didn't think anything was happening. I thought the story was dead. I couldn't feel it at all anymore. And I let go. And Mark, who was just a friend at the time, he said he was so curious about this book because he knew I'd been writing it. And so he said, you got to let me read it, So I said, okay, fine. But I don't want to know, like, if it's not to critique it. It's a first draft. Like, I gave him a lot of parameters. And then he came back at me like, I love it. Like, and he gave me this whole pep talk, talking about we have callings in life and gifts, and this is your gift and you have to finish this. And just really spoke to my heart. So at certain moments in the process, it can be helpful to allow someone in who's very trusted. But I would say keep those boundaries, let them know what kind of feedback you would like. If they don't like it, then, you don't need to critique it, but you can kind of gently let me know, maybe I should be looking for a different job, But, yeah.
And then that's just one person's opinion, because there are many famous writers who have written. I was reading The Alchemist the other day. I just finished it, and I read the little insert by the author, and he was saying how it was turned down 12 times. And it wasn't until he wrote his 4th or 5th book that they went back to the first one and they were like, this is phenomenal, this is fantastic, this is everything. So we can't always allow those outside influences to deter us or to have us do rewrites when we know good and well it's fine the way it is if we are satisfied with it. And yeah, so understanding that, what tips would you give to other writers who are starting out?
Well, tip number 1, I would say know yourself. Know who you are, what kind of style how do you approach things? Like, do you like to plan things? Do you like to create outlines? Or are you more like kind of freer and fluid in your structure of things? So, because that really creates 2 different ways of kind of approaching the writing process. I obviously am very much in the latter category. So I would say know yourself, know what you like to do. But no matter which category you fall into, whether you like, especially if you like to plot and plan, and there's a lot of techniques out there that they say, you write the beginning and the ending, and then you do the middle or something like that. I think all that is great, like whatever works for you. But I would encourage that plotter to, once they've created their structure, to then just let it all go and really step into writing from your heart, tuning into what is the truth that wants to come through. Yes. And then once you get into the flow of writing the story, you find it's taking you somewhere else. And I would encourage you to allow that. It's okay to revise your outline. It's okay to revise the plots a little bit. It's really use that as a blueprint and as a guide, and then let it go and allow the story to come through you, because they're real, and the characters, I view them as real. They live in another dimension, an imaginary dimension, and they tell us their stories. We have to let them.
Sure do. Real or not real, they tell us the stories.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was sitting here thinking about my own writing process, and it was like a story. Even though it was a self-help memoir, it was still the story that I went through, just flowing through me, just like a character. So it's really a phenomenal process. And if you really, really allow it, yes, it will come through you. And so with that, I'm going to ask you the ultimate question, which is, and I know you do subscribe to this because I know you well, right? We believe that a title has energy. It always has energy. So what made you pick the title that you did, and how did you arrive at picking that title for your book?
Oh, I love this question. Thank you. The title was tough. I did not know the title. And yes, titles do have energy and words carry energy. I'm very particular about the words I choose in writing and in speaking. So the title of this book, I was arriving towards the end of the book and I had no idea, and I would have these moments of sort of struggling, like, gosh, and I had a list of, potential titles, and none of them felt right. And then it was, and my husband, he said, don't worry about it. You'll find the title. The title's in the book. And I said, okay, like I liked that. So I was like, okay, I'll find the title. The title's in the book. It will, through the story, it will come to me. And sure enough, again, I can't give it away, but I think I can say that the secret society that is the focus in the book is called the Order of the Sons of Belial. So it's the secret order of the Sons of Belial, and it's a patriarchal order, just like we live in a patriarchal society. And the protagonist in the book is a female who is going on her own hero's journey from victimhood to empowerment, and daughter of Belial. And Belial actually, is a very old word. It's an ancient word. Yes. And I know you know it. It comes from, so there's derivatives of it, but the one that I chose, the origin of it, I decided to use Belial, but really I'm making a reference to the sons of Baal, which is a story coming out of the days of Atlantis and the fall of Atlantis. And it's a nod to that group of dark individuals who are said to have seeded the darkness in our current world. And sort of my own way of calling them out. Saying, I'm not going to hide this.
Because when I heard the name of the book, I was like, oh boy, she did some serious depth and homework on that one. So thank you for sharing that process. And maybe you want to share with the audience a little bit about why we believe that everything has energy and title.
Oh gosh, okay. Everything is energy. This is fabulous because I'm really learning more about this, and I've been studying some very elementary quantum physics. And so it's said that it's not said, it's actually science has stated this. Quantum physics has stated this, that our universe is made up of two things, energy and matter. And really, if we break down matter and the particles of matter, like we've all heard about how light is both a wave and a particle. And when they broke open the atom and were trying to figure out where electrons are, they realized that it was really hard to predict, and they were always changing, and they didn't adhere to the same laws, Newtonian laws of the universe that we've come to sort of accept, having separated energy and matter. And quantum physics has realized that energy and matter are one, they're inextricably linked, and also that it's not matter creating an energetic field, it's energy that creates matter. So when you change energy, you can change matter. And everything carries a vibration, and words do that as well, You love it.
I love it. I love it. I'm so math and science and everything along with the energetics. So I absolutely love it. This has been phenomenal. What last words would you like to share about your story in your book? And what last words would you like to say to the writers out there who are aspiring or in their process?
So I'll begin with, to the writers, to all you beautiful writers out there, keep going, keep writing, keep sharing your heart, dig deep, write about the stuff that scares you, write about the stuff you don't want to say, because that's what needs to be said. It's what needs to be heard and received, and shine the light of your consciousness on those deep, dark places. It's how we heal them. So you are so esteemed in my eyes, and keep going. We want to read your words. And to anyone out there who is on their own healing journey, no matter where you are on your journey, again, keep going. It's always just never stop. You could take a pause, you could take a break, come back to it, come back to yourself. Always find your home in your heart, find your feet on the ground, plant in Mother Earth, and connect into your soul in the divine, and be the bridge, be the light, because we need your light. And when you heal yourself, you heal your ancestors and you heal the generations that come after you. So you're doing the work of your entire lineage. And it may not be fair that it fell on your shoulders, but perhaps that's why you came into your line and your lineage, to make that transformation. It's an awesome responsibility. And so I thank you.
Thank you so much. And I know that we're going to stay tuned for promotional material that'll be added to this, but why don't you share where people can purchase your book and where they can reach you if they have questions or thoughts or just want to share with you?
Thank you. Yes, so you can get in contact with me directly through my website at jenniferjuvenelle.com. There's a little contact form. You can subscribe to my email list too. I will send out little freebies and things. I'm also on Instagram at jjuvenelle, and on Facebook I have an author page, Jennifer Juvenelle Author. So you can find me on those. And then my book, Daughter of Belial, is available on Amazon all over the world, ebook, paperback, hardcover. It's also available on Barnes & Noble and a variety of other websites that I can't remember the list of, but Amazon and Barnes & Noble are the biggest.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much. And we're excited to get even more new books out of you as an author. And I'm sure that the journey has just began. Thank you for taking the time and speaking with us. And it's just so great to have you here, and just so exciting to see you with your book. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Enolia. It's been truly an honor. I always love interacting with you, and to do an interview is a special treat. So thank you.
Okay, and we'll talk to you soon.